one thing that is common when it comes to algebra among all levels or classes, whether it's junior cert, whether it's living cert, higher level, ordinary level, is solving quadratic equation. So that's why I'm saying it's actually algebra for all. So first, how do I identify that I'm dealing with quadratic equation? Usually letter x, x to the power of 2, and x. The principle generally is if you're working through any calculation and at some point in your calculation you have any letter, like in this case x, but it can be any letter, and that letter is taken to the power of 2, what you think about is minus b formula. Okay? Because very often that's what you have to consider. I'm not saying always, but very often. So in this case, we have x to the power of 2 and x, but it could be, let's say, a to the power of 2 and a, or I don't know, p to the power of 2 and p. Actually, it doesn't matter what letter it is. So what is my minus b formula? So in our maths table, page 20, let's see, no, I think I bypassed it, my apologies, page 20, that's where it is. The very first one here we have on the top, it is finding roots of quadratic equation. Now, one important part, normally at the end of equation you have y, isn't it? Or let's say you will have f of x. But when instead of that you have 0, this is the situation you are having. So how do we solve it? Well, we need to replace letters in the formula with numbers, isn't it? Like always with all formulas, we need to know what is B, what is A, and what is C in our particular example. So how do we know that? Well, here beside that formula, we have the key to this code. So they are saying A is a number that stands beside x to the power of 2. So in our case, A, that's the number. So that means A is going to be 2. B is a number that stands beside x that doesn't have power. So in our case, that's minus 8. Don't forget, minus, always go with that number. And then C is the number that doesn't have x beside it. In our case, that is minus 11. So that's what we do. Now that we identify them, we're going to replace those letters. So x equal fraction line, and the same when you are putting it in the calculator. I very often see students struggling of getting that in your calculator. You start with a fraction line. Then we have minus, and then we put the b value. What's our b value? Minus 8. Then plus and minus. Why do we have plus and minus? Because we're going to do this calculation in two versions. One, we put it with plus, and then we go again and put it with minus. And then we have a square root, and then again b. So our b is minus 8, so we are putting minus 8, and let's not forget about power of 2. Now, important thing to note, in your calculator, make sure that that has a bracket. Otherwise, you're going to get an error message from your calculator. And then minus, and then we have 4 multiply. A, in our case, that's 2, so multiply by 2, multiply, and then C in our case, it's minus 11. Now, you don't need to have a bracket around that, but in this case, always. Then 2 multiply, and again, A, that is 2. And we put that in the calculator, all of that. We press equal, and one value we should get in this case, terms and condition at 2 decimal place, so 5.08. And then second, and we write x1 and x2, 2 values. The second one is minus 1.08. Now, always one thing you have to check. Minus b formula is the only one that gives you 2 answers. We have to check if both answers are applicable in the question. Now, in this case, there is no limits here given to the value of x, but sometimes we have to consider in particular question, if it is not just pure algebra calculation, but it's in the context of something else, another story, we have to make sure, for example, that x do not represent length, because I cannot have a negative length, isn't it? I cannot have minus 1 centimeter. So that's why I'm saying we have to always consider both answers in the context of the question.